First up, me. I agree. Give me a chance to win. Thank you.
They would never do that. You just know.
Hey! Dear Andrew, your mojo's not with you this afternoon.
That's 2-0 to you, Keith. Well done.
Well, I tell you what we'll do. We'll stop fighting for a minute, we'll have a chat with the audience, and then go back to the fighting days. And indeed. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Oriental the Tournament Gallery at the Royal Armouris. I'm Keith, this is Andrew. We're two of the people whose job it is to bring the museum to life. And what we just showed you was a series of attacks and defences using this formidable medieval weapon. But I will leave it to Andrew to describe what it is.
Thank you, Keith. So, this is known, ladies and gentlemen, as a two-handed sword. And it's known as that because... Exactly.
Use two-handed,
It's used with two hands. And you can clearly see it's got two cutting edges and a sharp bit at the end. So clearly, it's designed for hacking and slashing, but it also can be used for thrusting as well. But as I look into your eyes, I realise you've already worked that out. But it can be used very differently. And by that, I mean you may have noticed on several occasions during the combat we just showed you that Keith and I were placing our hands upon the blade itself. Remarkably stupid thing to do, so please, children, don't do it. However, a couple of schools of thought here, you may think that it would cut your hand. However, providing you don't allow your hand to slide along the edge itself, it shouldn't actually cut you. Take, for example, a steak you're having in a restaurant. You take a sharp steak knife, regardless of how sharp it is, if you push it against that meat, it doesn't cut. It simply pushes into the meat itself. It's not until you start a forward to back action, a cutting motion, that it actually cuts the meat itself. And the same should apply to the palm of your hand. The other theory is that it wasn't sharp on each side along the entire length of the blade. Only perhaps the top third is sharp either side, because if you stab somebody this far, they're dead. If you continue to stab them, they don't become deader. So there is little point in having the entire thing sharp. And actually, some manuscripts do suggest that the middle section is indeed blunt to allow you to use the hand. So if I can place my hand on the blade, I can use this very differently. If I could borrow you, Keith, for a moment, please. If you wouldn't mind delivering a cutting blow, cleaving me straight down the middle, please. Oh, I think the guys are too bad. Well, by placing a hand on the blade here, it acts as a shock absorber. A bit of extra protection, really, against that cleaving cut. Now, I've left my fingers open and not wrapped around the blade, because the reality is you wouldn't stop this, but redirect it. And if I redirected in one direction and my fingers were round, I would lose them and there'd be chipolage all over the floor. So, I leave my fingers open. However, from here, I can throw his sword aside, and now I can use this sword in a half-swording technique. That means one hand on the handle, one hand halfway up the blade. Notice half-swording, because I've halved the length of it. And now this rather long sword is turned into a short weapon, like a bayonet, where I could use it to basically thrust into the squidgier parts of Keith here.
I don't know the squidgy part.
Well, I mean, for example, the eye, or the throat, or underneath the arm, or even down the groin. But obviously not today. But I can also, what's there, things, Keith?
You give me a good reason to, I think.
Yeah. What I can also do is throw it off and then grab the blade with both hands and use the other end, the cross, to deliver what was known as the murder strike. To strike him with the cross there, I should imagine it's going to deliver quite a blow. And if he does defend it, then I can use that cross there to pull his sword down, and then the pommel to strike him in the face. The pommel is, of course, a counterweight to the blade. blade at the other end. This is where we get the phrase, to give somebody a good pummeling from. So the entire sword was used aggressively. But how do we know this? Well, thankfully, Keith has written, Keith's read a manuscript, basically an old book. Tell us all about it, Keith.
All right, several old books actually. Because the great thing about trying to rediscover European sword fighting over the last 20, 25 years is the abundance of genuine medieval fight manuals that have come to light and come onto the market, either for money or for free. There's so many of these manuals you can look at now. The interesting thing is, though, that not all of them are the same amount of use to us. Some of them are extremely explanatory. They're very good teaching aids. We get a good insight about medieval swordsmanship. Others seem to tell us almost nothing, because they were more likely memory aids for men who had already undergone the full course of study with the teacher who wrote the manual. And this one, we've got 4 panels from here, is sort of somewhere in between. This is the Fett book, or fight book, of a man named Hans Talhofer, who was active in the late Middle Ages. Now in Talhofer you get very, very beautiful illustrations that indicate very clearly where the fighters' bodies are, that's good, and you get some explanatory text, which is also good, but not as good as it could be, because it's generally just 2 lines. From that you've got to unravel the entire illustration. So this, as an example, is my favourite illustration from Talhofer. So here we have a man in red and a man in blue. You can see the man in red seems to have seized the sword of the man in blue, seems to have turned him back to front, seems to be kicking him in the sword of the back, and seems to have wound up with both his weapons and his opponent's wrapped around his opponent's neck. Now, could you possibly execute that in a single fast move? I seriously doubt it. I think that this is more like the kind of modern comic strip you get, where you have to understand the artist to get the comic strip, because the artist is going to put in a lot more information in each frame than you'll get by just a cursory glance or by reading the little speech bubbles. So the speech bubble on that one says, after you grab the blade, get in close. So that sort of tells us something, doesn't it? So maybe we can work backwards. So yes, supposing you give me a slice and then you take my head.
Oh, right, okay. Excellent. With pleasure.
Yes. So the first thing I'm going to do is step in, make a parry here, but as I'm parrying, more importantly, grab hold of the blade, right? So after you grab the blade, get in close, it says. So let's assume now that instead of trying to pull the sword out of his hand or do anything at a distance, I actually keep moving forwards, trying to ram the hilts into Andrew's face, neck and throat, while at the same time stepping round the back. So that gives us both swords wrapped around the opponent's neck. If from here now I give him that kick of the sword in the back, his neck falls into the crook between the swords. And I'm sure you'll agree, with a gentle but firm sawing action from this position, I may be able to relieve him of his head. Now I don't know if that's really what Talhofer intended, but I think if you're going to look at a manual like this, it's a useful sort of exercise in trying to work backwards from the illustration of the text. So maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong.
Indeed, what we're going to do now, however, is show you a section of the fight that we showed you when we first came out. This time we're going to walk and talk through a section of combat, explaining what it is we're trying to do, both in attack and, of course, in defence. Now, to begin with, there are a number of guards, starting positions, for want of a better word, within this manuscript, Fett book by Hans Talhofer. Some are in the high line, some are in the low line, some are aggressive, and some are very defensive. Now, I am going to adopt one, basically in the high line, quite an aggressive stance, and this one is known as the curling or crown stance.
When you say aggressive, it's only aggressive if you're trying to fight seagulls. So what I'm going to do is take one called the alba, or the fool stance, with my sword pointing at the floor. So now I'm threatening the worms. So why? We're both standing here with our swords pointing anywhere but at the enemy. And the answer to that is that we're essentially offering the opportunity, the enemy, an opportunity to attack. Now, the big problem here is we both attack at once, because if this happens, and I risk it, my head slices open, and Andrew risks me turning into a shish kebab. So, how are you going to stop that happening?
Well, I'm going to take the initiative on this occasion. However, rather than moving straight towards Keith, which would turn me into a shish kebab, whether I kill him or not, I'm going to work my way around the edges. I'm going to use gravity to aid the blade towards his knee, and basically cleave the leg off just below it, moving around the tip of his sword thus.
The first thing I do is I start moving. Because the further I am away from that sword, the more time my brain has to kick in and make an appropriate response. So since my left leg is going back, my right shoulder is being flung around and forward. So I might as well use that power to make a parry. But I might as well use the momentum of the parry to lead me into another cut once again out of his leg.
Exactly the same principle, but rather than redirect it around to his leg, I'm going to redirect the energy of that parry straight down on top of his head.
So, I step off to the side, take a slowly parry so the sword glances off mine, whip the sword round, try and take the head.
Now I defend. Reality would suggest I'd probably defend like this, so that the point of the sword is still aimed in his face. But, obviously I don't want to hurt Keith, so I've done it with the blade straight up, but gives me different options. From here, I can use the cross, beat it up, that exposes his midriff, basically cut him open.
Now, the truth is that'll probably be the end of the fight. And most of these medieval fight manuals, when they give more sequential instruction, generally don't run to any more than 3 or 4 moves. So clearly that's about as long as they expect the fight to last. But if I was Superman, I flew backwards through the air and managed to avoid that, I've now got options of my own, because that swing had too much power. Sword's gone right the way across his body. So I can attack him on the open side. But there again, I know that he knows I'm going to attack him on the open side. So time for a bit of psychology. I'm going to make a false attack where it's obvious, and then make another attack where it's less obvious. A bit like this.
Very good. Almost a feint there, teasing me on the open side. But now, enough of defence. I'm going to turn this into attack by sliding the blade all the way down here, using a move known as a glisse or glissade. And I'm going to basically run it all the way down to his thumb and chop it off. He has no thumb, he's only able to hold the sword. However, physically it takes
That
at
hurt
this
my
degree.
hand.
It just throws the blade aside. But his midriff is once again exposed. Thrust for that.
Keep out of the way, cut down with the head.
Smoothly parry as he did before, keep the circular footwork, basically remove his head.
Now this time I'm staying in close. I'm parrying with the sword and I'm going to grab the blade again. This time not with the hand. I'm going to make it a bit more safe for myself and use the entire arm. Not only is this safe by having all my clothing between my flesh and the sword, but also I get more leverage with this. So as he tries to pull through, all I've got to do is move the sword forward and I finish the fight.
Very good. So, now, what we'll do is show you the fight again, this time at full speed. However, I'm getting a bit sick of losing 2-0 to you, Keith.
Oh.
So I was wondering, if we did the fight again, we start the same, so we begin in the same stances, but somewhere within each section, we are allowed to change direction once.
Okay, each one changes direction once in each section.
In each section.
I'll go for that. Happy? Yeah, let's do that. Cool. Well, what happens is we're going to lose. Right. Roll. See?
No, I don't think so. 2-1?
2-1.
Okay.
Yeah. Get it again, go on.
time for me to make a suggestion.
Okay.
I'm going to leave this open to you, ladies and gentlemen. Whoever loses this final round, would you like to see them go out like a hero? Or would you like to see them completely and utterly humiliated?
Humiliated.
Britain is still a democracy. We'll do this with a show of hands. How many for hero?
Only 2.
2.
What's every 1,000
Here
hands?
I ask, how many for total humiliation?
Literally all the hands will
What happens when you make a museum free?
All right,
What's that?
from the roof.
I thought you said that was just threatening seagulls.
It was.
Okay. Hidden stats. So you don't know what's coming next. Deals?
I do.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Well, we'll be around for a few minutes now, as we always are after these shows, to give you a chance to ask us questions and to handle the weapons. If you do want to handle the weapons, though, please keep them up in the air where they're safe and don't turn around and walk away from the safety barrier with a sword in your hand. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day and thanks for stopping.